We're starting now Daf Dalid Amud Aleph, the middle of Torah Dalid by Ois Hey. So the Rebbe now is going to explain the Maimer Chazal. So just to summarize up until now what we learned that it's Me'en Elam Haba when a person knows the Kol Mar Yosef Heim L'Tevasai. And the way to realize that Kol Mar Yosef Heim L'Tevasai is by taking everything in this world and talking about it in front of a Talmid Chacham, which we explain doesn't necessarily mean in talking to Talmid Chacham. It means that Biskashas to Tzaddik, Biskashas to Talmid Chacham, a person that talks to Hashem about everything goes on in this world, especially his Averis, because that's Mala, everything in this world, back to the Shorish of everything, which is the Torah. Because the whole reason why a person sees this world as not everything l'taiva is because that everything in this world is either Shem Hashem or Shem Elikim. And a person is mafrid between Shem Hashem and Shem Elikim only because of his Averis, which means he took the Oisis HaTorah and he's mitzaref them in the wrong tzaref. Mamela, he sees the world with the wrong tzaref. When a person brings everything back to the Torah, which means he brings everything back to the Talmid Chacham, then the Talmid Chacham can be mitzaref the Oisis for him back in the right way, and then he could see the world correctly. And the koyach that Talmid Chacham has to do that comes from the fact that Talmid Chacham is anov and with a bittul and totally nullified himself in front of Hashem. So now the Rebbe brings the Maimer Chazal that says the mashal echo. There was a mashal of a person mahalich b'derech b'ishan laila v'afela who was going on the way in the middle of the night. It was dark. He was scared because since it was dark, he was afraid min ha'koitzim and min ha'pachasim. He was afraid of stepping on thorns, of stepping into a bar or a ditch. Michayro, he was afraid of wild animals, melistim from robbers. He also didn't even know where he's going because it's the middle of the night and it's dark. So the Rebbe explains that we know that all the midas reis and the toldas come from the Arbi Yisaitis, from the Aber Maris, which are brought down Mishras Chassidim. Over here it's talking about the Doimim Tzamei Chaim Medaber. So we say Atzvus, and everything having to do with Atzvus, like Atzlus, and so on and so forth, comes from Doimim. Taivis Reis come from Tzemeach. Devarim B'Telim come from Chai. And Gaiva comes from Medaber. So somebody wants to go on the proper Derech HaKodesh, he has to break all his Midas Reis. And he also has to speak in front of Talmid Chacham, v'didvarim, and then the Talmid Chacham could be mefarish and give him a derech lefi shorish nishmasei. So these three levels the person has to go in this right mahalach are three different levels of his karas tzaddik. If through these three bechinas, the person can suck on everything. So these are the three bechinas. It says like this. The first bechina is when a person sees a tzaddik, like v'hayu einecha rois es merecha. So that when a person sees the tzaddik, then it's mevatel the midas rois, which come from doimim and tzemeach, which means atzvus and taivus rois. Why is that? Because when a person sees a tzaddik, so to see a tzaddik, the pashtus, it means a person begashmis, he sees a tzaddik, but in a deeper way, it means when a person is masik who the tzaddik is. Why is that? Because what's special about the tzaddik that he has that koyach to be mevatel the midas reis, which come from atzvos and taivus reis? Because a tzaddik is like a mother for Klal Yisrael. Why is that? A mother is like mother nurses Klal Yisrael. Mother is what gives a sustenance to her children, to her baby when she nurses. So the or haTorah of the tzaddik is like chalav, like devash v'chalav tachas hashon. The Torah is nimshal to milk. So the tzaddik, through his Torah, he's meir to Klal Yisrael, and he gives sustenance to Klal Yisrael. When a person feels that about the Torah of tzaddik, when a person sees the tzaddik as the person who's giving him sustenance through his Torah, then the same way when a child sees its mother, then even if he was ba'atzvus, and even if he was ba'atzlus, when he sees his mother, he jumps up to his mother b'simcha, because the mother is a shorish. In the same way, also, even when a child is being oisik b'divrei shtus, he has a big taiva for his shtusim, for his toys, But when he sees his mother, he jumps up to his mother, he throws away all his taivis, all his shtusim, and he goes towards his mother. So too, when a person is masig and sees in a tzaddik his sustenance, then when he sees a tzaddik, or when he's masig, like through learning the tzaddik's svarim and the tzaddik's Torah, then first of all he realizes he wants to draw himself to tzaddik. That koyach that the tzaddik draws him in is mavatal atzvas, because he's happy to see the tzaddik, he's happy to be yonik from his Torah. And it takes away his atzlas, because there's reasons that in which it's ma'ir him to want to come close to him. That's mavatal does that. And also a person, when he wants to come close to tzaddik, is ready to give up all his shtusim and throw away all his shtusim to come to the tzaddik. So the first thing is, that's what it means. A person was scared of thorns, which means he's scared of tzemach or the taivas rice. He's scared of pchasim. He's scared of the ditches, which is a daimim, which is the atzlas and atzvas. And when a person gets an avuka shel or, when he gets a torch, so the hemshech of that Maimer Chazal is that when the person gets a torch, so now he has light. Now he knows to protect himself. He sees the kaitzim across the way, he sees the pchasim across the way, so he's able to protect himself. So if a person has a Talmud Chacham, which is a light in the Orat Torah, then through that he's saved, that not to fall into daimim tzameach and from kaitzim and pchasim. And so, in other words, when a person sees the Orat Torah tzaddik, that he has the light to save himself, to be able to save himself from falling into atzlas and atzvas and taivas rice, because seeing the tzaddik gives him that koyach, he wants to throw everything away so he could come close to the tzaddik, and that's ma'ir him to simcha, it's ma'ir him to zrizas. Now the second bechina that we spoke about is the taivas that come from the devarim b'telim, which come from chai, and gaiva, which comes from medaber. So that the tikkun is when a person gives tzedakah Talmud Chacham. Through that, a person is saved from the midas first, which come from chai medaber, which we said the chai ran listim. Why is that? Because we know it's brought down ki meisukal nashim zanius, and by gaiva it says similar gasas ruach as anius. So you see that dvarim b'tema and lashon hara brings anius. Meisukal nashim is going on those who spoke lashon hara on Moshe Rabbeinu. So you see that lashon hara and dvarim b'telim brings anius. When you see the gasas ruach brings anius, we know through tzedakah nesasher. Person gives tzedakah, then Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kavyachol, he made up that through tzedakah a person is a sasher. Which means through tzedakah a person is saved from those averis which cause the hepech of ashiris. So, since lashon hara and devarim b'telim and gaiva bring anius, so a person gives tzedakah, he's nitzel from those averis. So that's what Chazal said. That shuv ein maran simone anius. When a person gives tzedakah, he doesn't have simone anius. It saves him from doing affairs which cause anius, and that's what it means. That when the Chazal mamshech in that mashal, that when the Amud HaShachar came up, when it came daytime, they was saved from chayra and listim, because now it's daytime and the chayes rois and listim are only there during the dark of night. But when it's morning, which means when there's tzedakah around, then there's no chayra on listim. When there's tzedakah around, there has to be a shir, so it can't be anius. Maybe there can't be any of the midas reis which lead to anius. Now the third bechina the Rebbe says is when a person is misvade v'di devarim lifnei Talmud Chacham. So that's the hemshech over there. That when he comes to Parashas Drachim, he comes to a split in the road. When he comes to a split in the road, so Chazal say, what's that split? That's a Talmud Chacham and Yom HaMisa. That Yom HaMisa is a time of Vidi Devarim, and when it's Vidi Devarim and a Talmud Chacham, then he has a parshas drachim. He has a parshas drachim. Literally means a split in the road. It's a parish. A derech is parish. It splits. And the Rebbe explain means you have a pirush on your derech, that the Talmid Chacham is mefarish you, for you, what's your proper derech lefi shorish nishmasei. So now the Rebbe explains how all this works in a deep way. So that every time a person comes in front of a Talmid Chacham and he tells the Talmid Chacham everything on his heart. And we said before, Talmid Chacham is like Moshe, who's a bechin of ayin. He's on the highest level of nullifying himself and bittul of anivus, and that's what makes him a Talmid Chacham, is a chachma me'ayin timatzeh. So that means if you take everything in, you take everything in your world, you talk about everything that's going on in your life, you take all your averos and you talk to Hashem about it with this kashas Talmid Chacham. That means you're taking your entire world, your entire malchus and all your diburim, you're taking all the malchus, and where you're throwing it into nothingness, because the Talmid Chacham is that who's batal to Hashem is batal to Ein Sof. And Ein Sof means the highest ratzon of Hashem, meaning the person is mevatel himself, that he has no ratzon, just a ratzon shebechol ratzon. It's a ratzon before any ratzon. So the Rebbe explains what that means. That means there's a level that Hashem wants certain things. For example, Hashem wants the world, the malchus, to be a certain way. That He wants Aleph to look like an Aleph. He wants Beis to look like a Beis. That all the ritzonos, which means all the way all the oisius look, are different ways of Hashem's malchus in this world. Hashem wants the malchus to be in a certain way. But there's a higher level that the ratzon that comes before that ratzon. Before there's a ratzon that everything in this world should be a certain way, and everything that exists should have in which everything in this world comes from Isis. Everything in the world has Mayim is Isis Mem Yud and a Mem. That Hashem had a ratzon that Mem should look this way, Yud should look this way, and Shlos Mem should look this way, because Hashem wanted there should be a thing called Mayim which comes from that. But there's a ratzon before that which is Ein Sof. Ein Sof means it's infinite. It has no tmuna, has no gevul. And all the yeshus in the world and all the malchus in the world, everything in this world, before there's a yesh, there's an ayin. There's an ayin which is a ratzon before all the ritzonos, which is something which we can't even be masig because we live in the world of yesh. But that's what Chazal mean when they say wherever you see the godless of Hashem, which is a malchus of Hashem, which means the expression of Hashem wants the world to be a certain way. He wants the Isis to look a certain way. He wants the world to look a certain way. He wants the objects in the world and the events of this world to be a certain way. But there you find the anivus of Hashem. Anivus is bittul, the ratzon ein sof, the ratzon of Hashem, which is before any gashmias, before wanting that anything should be a certain way. It's ein sof. There's no sof, there's no gvul saying that this is how it should be. And this is why all the tzaddikim were nostalgic. Moshe Rabbeinu and all the tzaddikim were nostalgic by Shabbos, but Mincha, which is a time of Rava the Ravin, the Ratzon Shabbat Mincha, the time on Shabbos, the time of Shal Shuddas, of Ratzon Shabbat is a time of Ratzon Ein Sof, that is a time where there's no Ratzon of being this way, being that way. It's a Ratzon before all Ritzonos, where all Ritzonos come from that Ratzon. And that's why it says Moshe Rabbeinu was buried in Gai, in a valley, which means the lowest place that has nothing of itself. And Be'eretz Moav, which is Chil of Malchus, David comes from Moav, Mul Beis Pa'ar, and then through that he goes against Avodah Zarah Beis Pa'ar. And that's why Lo Yada Ish, I feel Moshe Lo Yada, that no one knew where the kever of Moshe is. So this Vadrega Mitzvah Shem tomorrow will we get on the base will explain how we connect to this Madrega and what it means to us to be connected to this Madrega. But just to summarize, that there are three levels of coming close to Tzaddik, which are Mevatel Midas Reis. It's seeing a Tzaddik, which is Mevatel Midas Reis of Atzlus, Atzvus, and Taivus, and giving Tzedakah to Tzaddik, which is Mevatel those things which bring Anius, which are Lashon Hara, B'Telem, and Gaiva. And when you speak to the Talmid Chacham, then he's mefarish and mevarif a person of derech lefi shorish nishmasei. Then the Rebbe explains that wasn't what's the Indian, because there's a ratzon of this world, and that everything in this world has a specific ratzon how it is. That every aleph looks like this, every beis like this, water looks like this, and a tree looks like this. And there's a ratzon before all those ritzonos, and we're going to explain tomorrow how that works. That we're taking all the ritzonos of this world, which is all the diburim of this world, and talking about all the oisius, using oisius and diburim to talk about all these things in this world, and to bring it into the Ein Sof, and to bring it to Ratzon Shabbat Ritzonos.